Well, I thought that would be the last time that I was wearing a winter jacket for an update for the season, but apparently that's not the case. So yes, it did snow, and yes, I think a lot of people have been dealing with similar things throughout the northern part of the country. But today I want to talk about some renovation projects. What do I really think about this fescue back here, how it's been progressing since last season, how the weed control went after that application, probably a couple weeks ago now. Be going over my neighbor's project that we did across the street, going over the couple acres that I seeded out at Paul's house, and just giving you a general update on some things that are going on around here. So first off, let's talk about the snow. Now, I know I got a lot of questions after we got about an inch of snow yesterday about, I have new seedlings up, what should I do about them? Are they gonna be okay? I've got a hard freeze going on that's got seed on the ground, but they're not coming up yet. Is it going to harm anything? Lots of questions about that cold weather. Really, that's a tough question to answer. There's a lot of variables that go into that. But if you had some seed up and you got a blanket of snow on top of it, if you think about it, usually that blanket of snow is actually insulating the ground quite a bit. So maybe in that case, if the snow was on there overnight when your coldest temperatures were happening, that wouldn't be such a bad thing. Now, if you didn't have any snow cover on there and you got to about 28, 25 degrees, that's about looks like where we're gonna be at tonight, then you definitely could have some difficulty with those grass plants freezing, getting a hard freeze, having a really shallow root system at this point. But grass tends to be a lot more resilient than you think it is, so give it a little time to figure out whether or not it's going to be any long-term damage that happens or not. The other major question that often comes into play with cold weather or snow that happens like that is people who've already put down their pre-emergent. They want to know, is this a problem? Is it going to be ruined? Do they need to do something over? And for the most part, there shouldn't be any issue with this. It's just another form of water that's coming out of the sky. The ground temperatures have gone back down, so if you haven't put down pre-emergent yet, then you can still do that, because I can pretty much guarantee right now my soil temps are down, probably hovering around 40 again. But if you had your pre-emergent down and you got some snow, I would not worry about that whatsoever. Everything's gonna be fine. So we had to do the fun part of covering all of our plants with trying to find enough blankets or buckets. If you live up in the north, you probably know what this is like to go through this, where you get some hard freeze warnings. But I've been seeing that there's some freeze warnings going down pretty far south too. Just a scenario right now with some weird weather going on late April. The other question that a lot of people have been asking is, what do I actually think of the tall fescue in the backyard now that it's been planted last season and it's come through winter and it's come out on this side? Well, I will say that it doesn't look as drastically different from bluegrass as I kind of assumed that it would. A lot of people think of tall fescue and probably think of the older varieties that had a really wide blade or something like Kentucky 31. But so far I've been pretty impressed with the way that this looks compared to the bluegrass, and not having much of a drastic difference there. So what I would say is that the front yard and what I'm doing up there has kind of made me more of a short grass person. Now, I've always been more into the look of shorter grass. It wasn't something that I thought was necessarily possible for a long time, but now that I've been working on that and seeing what the results are, I much prefer it. Now, if you like this taller look, there's plenty of people out there that don't like the short cut grass. They only like the taller cut grass, and that's totally cool. It doesn't really matter what you prefer, but just for me, that's kind of where I'm at with it. Nothing wrong with the way that it looks back here. I'm going to show you a couple things that I don't like about taller grass here just in a second. So let's see how well this shows, but you can see where the traffic areas are. On shorter grass, you will still see your footprints sometimes, but you're not going to get such a layover. And that's exactly what was happening with my bluegrass before, was that it was getting so thick and it was laying over from mowing or from traffic areas, and then you just have these areas where there's a big clump, like right here, there's a big clump of grass that has just wanted to lay over. So when you start watering that, it's laying over on itself, gets water underneath here, you start to have fungus. It just doesn't have as much of a clean, flat look to it. Now, this still needs some maturity. Remember that this is only about 6 months old. It's not like all of this is as good as it's going to get by any means, but you can see this path here to the garden where we've been walking back and forth, doing all that stuff, and it definitely gets matted down. It's hard to get picked back up. That's just one thing I don't like about it. Now, that's not specific to tall fescue by any means. That's just any taller grass that gets really, really thick, and you're gonna notice that it doesn't want to stand up so much anymore. It's just the fact that I don't really like that laid down look once you get some traffic on the yard. So you can just see here how things are really laid over in a lot of the traffic areas. This spot right here also was something coming in, but that was coming in before I did the renovation project. I'm gonna have to cut this whole thing out probably and reseed that in the fall time. At least that's probably the current plan. The other thing is that had I known I was going to be doing a full renovation back here last year, or that I had planned it out, I would have probably re-leveled the ground because it's bumpy back here. And now that I have some of those damaged spots that aren't as full as they should be, the mower goes down into those little spots as well, and it's just a big bumpy mess back here. So that makes it kind of not so fun to mow either. Definitely not as fun as the front yard and how smooth that is. But in terms of positives, I think I'm gonna have a lot better time in the summertime in terms of withstanding the drought. So I'm looking forward to seeing how that works. And also the color and the stripeability of the tall fescue back here definitely have come out really well here in spring, and I think it's just gonna get better. So those couple things are kind of where I'm at with it, but let's talk about the weed control. So the weed control application did a great job. That was a mixture of tenacity and quinclorac, and the reason that I went with those two, remember, was that I had seed on the ground, needed something that was safe for seeding. So that's the reason why I went with that and maybe not another broadleaf type product. Overall, it only took a couple days to see some curling. Now I'm starting to see the whitening of the leaves from the tenacity, and everything seems to be really shriveled up and going away. I'm pleased with that application. Of course, any of these weeds that have already come up that maybe will get a hard freeze tonight or did last night isn't such a bad thing either. So for the neighbor's renovation project, for those who don't know the details, it was seeded in August. It's about an 80-20 Kentucky bluegrass to rye mixture there. We did some overseeding, and of course ryegrass matures a lot faster than bluegrass, so it's kind of hard sometimes in those mixtures to tell exactly which plant is which. Both of these have a really nice dark color when you get into those elite cultivars, so everything mixes well, it looks uniform. And last year we were also in a drought, so this was seeded. Not much rainfall whatsoever occurred from that point until the end of fall. It was mostly all irrigation that was added to it. So for the conditions that we had, it looks fantastic. My neighbor has been doing a great job as well, keeping up on very consistent mowing. He's already applied, I think, 3 times of some spoon feeding simple lawn stuff this year, which I haven't applied anything, so he's definitely getting ahead of the game here, and he's doing a great job keeping all of that stuff going. So with continued great care, it's gonna mature even more, go through a full season, and I think my neighbor's impressed with how it looks, and he's really happy to be out working in the lawn, and something that he's really proud of.
You'll see around the backside there, it's a little brown, but it's, I mean, there's green in there, so it's just got to recover. I just don't think it's warm enough.
Yeah.
Because you look back where our dryer is venting.
Yeah.
Like, and it's just green and lush.
It's
so
not. You can tell it has that like early spring look to it right now. Where.
But I'm not. Man, this is awesome. Like, I'm not disappointed.
No.
I just I'm gonna get it sprayed. The soil's looser where I did those downspouts.
Yep.
And then up where the house, where I think the sun reflects off the
more heat. Yeah. All right, so I'm back out here. If you haven't checked out their channel, they just hit 100,000 subscribers not too long ago, so definitely check that out if you want to see what they're doing here with their house build. But this was the project that we did out here last year, and surprisingly, again, I would say during the drought, I can't believe how good it looks for the conditions that we had. This was all natural irrigation, and it only rained maybe once or twice during that time frame after the seed was down. Nothing too heavy, which was good because it didn't wash out. But at the same time, I'm pretty shocked at how much grass is out here considering the conditions. So hopefully you'll be able to see it here on this, but this ground out here is still fairly compacted. It definitely does need some more nutrients to it as well, but you can see right here, you can definitely see that it's a lot more green, so I knew that the soil is probably less compact there. It's grown in a lot better, and Paul said, yep, put in the water line right through that section, so the soil was kind of tilled up and you didn't have as much compaction through that little area there. That kind of shows you what's going on in terms of the soil and how important it is that if it can grow some good roots into there, you're gonna get that really dark green color and just a lot better grass growing in. In general, we also knew that we would be having to do some weed control. Overall, that can all be sprayed pretty easily just to get rid of the weeds that are here, and pretty much all up around the house, he's doing really well in terms of the thickness of the grass. Then all this area back here had straw on it. You know, there's still some remnants of that straw. I think he's gonna come in here and probably get rid of some of that, maybe drag some of it out or rake it out. So you can see how dry it is. These little weeds coming up here, that can all be sprayed. But you can hopefully see down here to the soil, it's fairly hard soil. We haven't had enough rain, we haven't had enough warmth to get the grass really going, but this does have some bluegrass mixed into it. It should still do some spreading around. We'll be doing another overseed probably in the fall, but in terms of soil, definitely needs some rainfall, you know, some more fertilizer on here as well. So I'll probably be back out here as soon as things warm up and can actually see the grass growing a little more actively, and hopefully I'll be able to get on the zero turn and do some mowing out here, because that's really what I want to do. So that is the update on the renovation projects from last season. I've got some pretty interesting stuff coming up this year, which is going to be announced very soon, so stay tuned for all of that. Thanks so much for watching today. We'll see you next time.